Hello, we are Group 1 and the members are Andrea Das, Brittany Baxter, Lauren Drake, Kelly Lee, and Sabi Uman. We are presenting on Eucrisa.
Heard about Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It can be used almost everywhere, on almost every body.
The face of a fisherman?
The hand of a ranch hand?
The knee of a needle pointer.
Prescription Eucrisa is a nose-to-toes eczema ointment. It blocks overactive PDE4 enzymes within your skin.
And it's steroid-free.
Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa or its ingredients. Allergic reactions may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain. Ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Eucrisa or crisaborole, manufactured by Pfizer, was approved in 2016. It is the first-in-class phosphodiesterase 4 or PDE4 inhibitor to enter the eczema treatment paradigm, and also the first new prescription therapy to be approved for this disease space in over a decade. Eucrisa is a steroid-free ointment for people with mild to moderate eczema and can be used on all skin tones from nose to toes for adults and kids as young as 2 years old. Eczema is a relapsing chronic inflammatory skin disorder characterized by rash, inflammation, and itching, often occurring in the folds of skin. The symptoms can last up to 14 days or more. Approximately 18 to 25 million people in the United States suffer from this condition. There have been no new molecular entities for eczema in the last 15 years. Eucrisa was originally developed by Anacor Pharmaceuticals, which was acquired by Pfizer for $5.2 billion in 2016. Pfizer acquired Anacor because Anacor would be a strong fit with Pfizer's inflammation and immunology portfolio with its current pipeline of drugs for psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. Anacor already had another drug, Caridin, which was the first oxaborole antifungal approved for the topical treatment of fungal infection, and it could also strengthen Pfizer's position in the topical use drug market for skin conditions. Pfizer expected to enhance near-term revenue growth for this revenue business up to $2 billion a year with Eucrisa sales. Anacor's crisaborole had a new drug application under review by the FDA, and as mentioned earlier, it is a differentiated product with compelling clinical data, and if approved, it had the potential to be an important first-in-line treatment option for patients with eczema. Let's look at the strengths, weakness, threats, and opportunities for Pfizer. Pfizer is a research-based global pharmaceutical company committed to the discovery, development, and manufacture of healthcare products. Its global portfolio includes medicines, vaccines, and consumer healthcare products. The company's multinational operations enable it to benefit from economic upswings in various regional markets despite crises in others. Pfizer keeps its business profitable because of its international presence in emerging and various developed markets, even during economic crisis. Pfizer has highly successful products that are internationally known, like Lyrica, Celebrex, Lipitor, and Viagra. Pfizer has a leading market shares in a number of segments. The company remains one of the world's leading pharmaceutical firms, and its market shares are high compared to those of its competitors. The company's large organizational size enables economies of scale and research and development capabilities that smaller companies do not have. The company is also strong because of the uniqueness of many of its products. Moreover, acquisitions like that of Wyeth in 2009 made the company an even more powerful player in the global pharmaceutical industry. Weakness and threats include the presence of generics and the impending expiration of patents of many of its unique products like Lyrica and Viagra. These expirations could make the company weaker because competitors could then produce copies of such products. Other risks in Pfizer's business include multiple lawsuits regarding adverse effects and patents. Some examples are lawsuits against Zoloft, Protonix, and Effexor due to their adverse effects. Furthermore, counterfeiting in some regions could reduce Pfizer's revenues and tarnish its brand image. Opportunities. Pfizer should maintain an aggressive approach in the area of research and development to mitigate the effects of competitive forces in the industry. R&D capabilities are a major competency that the company can use to support business growth. Another recommendation is to develop strategic alliances that complement Pfizer's current business. For example, the company can enter into agreements with major distributors and sellers in emerging markets to strengthen its presence worldwide. On the other hand, diversification is a recommendation for improving Pfizer's risk exposure linked to limitations resulting from focusing the business mainly within the pharmaceutical industry.
Now that we understand the ownership of Eucrisa, let's look into its development. Anacor targeted a class of drugs called phosphodiesterase inhibitors They did this because there were already other drugs on the market that fall within this class, many of which had indications for inflammatory diseases. This made Anacor suspect it might be useful in treating skin-related inflammations. Selecting a target class of compounds might sound pretty straightforward, but there's 11 different types of PDEs, and many of these types also have different subclasses. Once Anacor settled on PDE4 and tested it in development, they moved to human trials. Anacor tested crisaborole on healthy volunteers in 7 different studies, volunteers with eczema in 2 studies, and volunteers with psoriasis also in 2 studies. The goals of these early trials were to see if crisaborole had the intended effect, if it was safe to use on humans, and what side effects might occur. After evaluating crisaborole in phase 1 clinical trials, Anacor then moved to phase 2 clinical trials. During these, they only tested on patients with either eczema or psoriasis. Eczema patients ranged from 12 to 17 years old, as well as a separate adult trial. For psoriasis patients, they only tested in adults. Ultimately, psoriasis was dropped as a possible indication for crisaborole based on the study outcomes. It should be noted during this time, Anacor tested a few different formulations of crisaborole. They ultimately decided on the 2% ointment, which would be branded as Eucrisa. Once crisaborole completed phase 2 clinical trials, Anacor began with phase 3 clinical trials. Phase 3 trials involved 2 parallel studies with the same set of conditions. Studies were randomized, double-blinded, with a 2-to-1 ratio of patients using either crisaborole to the vehicle or placebo treatment. Patients all had mild to moderate eczema, were aged 2 to 79 years old. Each study lasted for 28 days, and application of the treatment was twice daily.
So now that we know the beginning of Eucrisa's 2 phase 3 clinical trials, what results did they produce? Eucrisa was indicated for the topical treatment of mild to moderate atopic dermatitis or eczema in patients ages 2 and older. Eucrisa had adverse reactions occur in less than 1% of participants in the phase 3 clinical trials. The adverse reaction or side effect reported was application site pain, defined as skin sensations such as burning or stinging, and 77.6% of the reported application site pain resolved within 1 day with no additional treatments needed. With this minimal of an adverse reaction reported, Eucrisa does not have a black box warning. The primary endpoint for Eucrisa was determined using the investigator's static global assessment. The ISGA score had to improve by at least 2 grades from baseline to be determined successful. More patients achieved clear or almost clear skin after the 28-day Eucrisa treatment in comparison to vehicle treatment in both clinical trials. However, as you can see on the slide, the efficacy evidence is not a strong argument for Eucrisa because there is not a great variation between Eucrisa and vehicle success. Additional endpoint analyses conducted during the phase 3 clinical trials included time to success in ISGA score, percentage of patients achieving clear or almost clear reduction in severity of atopic dermatitis signs, and time to improvement in pruritus. The regulatory timeline for Eucrisa begins on January 7th of 2016, when Pfizer submitted the new drug application to the FDA. The FDA then accepted the new drug application on March 22nd, 2016. July 13th, 2016, Pfizer published the final results from Eucrisa's 2 phase 3 clinical trials. And then finally, on December 14th of 2016, the FDA approved Eucrisa, marking it first in its class. Once a drug is FDA approved, the clinical trial and regulatory process does not necessarily stop there. Currently, there is an ongoing trial involving Eucrisa that is looking at the adherence to topical therapy. With Eucrisa's approval in December 2016, the patent clock is ticking.
Eucrisa currently has 4 patents that have been approved by the FDA, 1 composition of matter patent and 3 process patents for using boron-containing compounds to treat eczema. It is slated to lose market exclusivity in 2021, but its last patent will expire in 2030, making its loss of market exclusivity less of a concern. Pfizer currently has 1 patent under FDA review for Eucrisa. This patent is a process patent for a new way of synthesizing Eucrisa, which decreases the number of steps involved from 5 to 3, and this results in a decrease in cost of production. It's yet to be seen if they'll pass these cost savings on to consumers or use it to increase their profit margin. Another potential avenue Pfizer could take with their patenting strategy would be to develop a cream or lotion formulation. In general, patients don't enjoy applying ointments to their skin because they're oil-based and can feel very greasy. Pfizer could also work towards a longer-acting version of Eucrisa to allow for once-daily application instead of twice a day. Simplifying drug administration improves patient compliance, which would benefit Pfizer, payers, and patients alike. But Eucrisa isn't the only medicine for eczema. There are many other options.
What are my options? Eucrisa is more likely to compete with other topical eczema therapies, including over-the-counter lotions, steroid creams, which cause side effects like thinning skin and are not recommended for long-term use. Other eczema creams are simply moisturizers and are only effective for managing symptoms rather than reducing inflammation. Eucrisa's approval came in for mild to moderate eczema, whereas Elidel, Protopic, Dupixent, these drugs are taking aim at moderate to severe eczema. So these are not direct competitors, but are competitors. Though mild disease is thought to account for around 70% of patients, so Eucrisa has the largest slice of the market. Eucrisa's positive differentiators include it is non-steroid and it has no major adverse effects or hypersensitivity reactions like skin lightening. It can be used on sensitive areas like on the face. Crisaborole is a safe option for patients in whom topical corticosteroids are considered risky. That is, it can be used on children as young as 2 years of age. The three most common adverse effects are application site infection, burning or stinging with application, and worsening dermatitis. This slide shows the price comparison of Eucrisa with other comparator drugs available in the market, as it is clearly visible that Eucrisa is starkly different with a higher price. If we want to analyze the pricing of Eucrisa, we may want to look at some statistics. The global eczema drugs market size was valued at $4.1 billion in 2016. It is expected to reach $6.41 billion by 2022, exhibiting a CAGR of 6.6% during the forecast period. Increasing prevalence of eczema is the primary growth stimulant for the market. So Eucrisa was the only approved PDE4 inhibitor approved by the FDA in 2016 for treatment of mild to moderate eczema and is one of the few medicines indicated for pediatric usage. Given the market size, forecasted growth, and evidence of safety, efficacy, and positive differentiators, leveraging its first-to-market advantage, Pfizer obviously positioned Eucrisa as premium priced.
Given its premium price, insurance coverage is going to be important to patients. Eucrisa coverage by private insurance is very hit or miss. However, in general, if it's covered at all, it's a Tier 2 or Tier 3 drug and usually requires prior authorization or proof of failure of other medications first. Eucrisa is virtually never covered under public insurance options, Medicare and Medicaid. The Canadian Agency for Drugs and Technologies in Health did a price comparison for Eucrisa, comparing it to betamethasone, its competitor, as well as its comparator tacrolimus and Elidel. Overall, Eucrisa had better relative cost per quality adjusted life year in children than adults, but it was less cost effective than both betamethasone and tacrolimus in both children and adults. It was found to be more cost effective than Elidel in both categories. It was approved for sales in Canada in November 2018, and Eucrisa has not yet been licensed for marketing in the United Kingdom, but it was submitted for review with the National Institute of Health and Clinical Excellence this past November. As the first PDE4 inhibitor on the market and the first new drug for eczema in over a decade, Pfizer saw value in heavily marketing directly to consumers. They have featured 2 signature commercials. They spent $1.7 million on their steroid-free commercial and $5.9 million on their nose-to-toes commercial. There were not any commercials for eczema treatment on the air at the time that Eucrisa put out their commercial. However, Dupixent, one of their comparators, started airing commercials about 6 months later. Their website is user-friendly and prominently features assistance in getting coverage for Eucrisa with the Eucrisa For Me program, which includes a telephone hotline for patients. Pfizer did not break down their physician marketing for Eucrisa in their annual reports. However, they did rely heavily on detailing visits to dermatologist and allergist offices, and these visits included distributing samples and discount coupons. They've also used print advertising in medical journals, and they have a dedicated prescriber website that includes educational videos on the pharmacology of Eucrisa and a request form for samples and coupons. Thank you for watching our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it.